It's 6:30. I call the May 26th Planning Board meeting to order. And for those of you who wish, there are copies of the agenda up here. If you would come up and get it now. Okay, first on the agenda is the approval of the May 12th minutes. No, minutes.
Oh, minutes, right?
Yeah. It's
Madam
good.
Chair, I recommend approval of the minutes of May 12th, 2015.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a release, CVS Davis Straits, request for release of covenant, and I'd like Brian to speak to that.
As a condition of your approval, you recall, for the CVS building on the corner of Beacon Highway, was part of a covenant to secure the performance of their conditions. The building is ready to occupy. The developer is looking for a release of that covenant. I could recommend to the board tonight that you do so, but you release that covenant in favor of Lot 1 to be now imposed on the former Lot 2.
Okay.
Where the bank building will be going in and where the other curb cut will be constructed. And that's my recommendation to the board.
Okay, and you all understand? Okay. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? Okay, so it's the release of the covenant on Lot 1 in favor of Lot 2.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
No, well, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, Brian, are you saying then that there is still a covenant in place? It's just been shifted from one lot to the other?
Correct. I'm asking the board to do that tonight. Right now, it only applies to the former Lot 1, which is where the new CVS building has been constructed. It never did apply to the former Lot 2, where now the bank building is going together. So now that they are seeking occupancy, they're looking for the release of that covenant. And then in exchange, they will also put it on Lot 2, where the new bank building is going, or where the curb cut will be built.
And does that covenant also cover the landscaping on the lot that we're releasing it from?
Right, and so everything's been inspected, and the plans have been constructed as per your approval, in order to secure it. I went there 3 times.
All right, I have a question about the landscaping on Lot 1, and I haven't been able to check it versus what the special conditions are, or what we agreed upon. I thought there were supposed to be large berms to protect the headlights from the cars parked perpendicular to Route 28, and I don't see them there.
I don't remember a berm. I do remember the row of plantings and knockdown headlights. They're in place.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
we allowed them to not have a berm.
Okay,
But to
the
have the-
landscape, those plants are in place? Okay,
Yeah, they were just put in, I think, maybe 2 days ago.
okay, because I haven't seen it. They weren't there the last time I looked, let's put it that way.
They apply tonight.
Okay,
Paul?
Is the same party holding the covenants, or is it being switched to another party for the bank?
No, it's over of the town from the developer.
So it's the same developer?
Same.
Thank you.
This is the covenant we're speaking of, is it not, or not? Okay. So, it's in here. Any other questions in regard to this? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you. Moving on to approval not required plans, we have one. The applicant is Ann A. Rutherford to divide and annex 2 existing lots on Countrywood Lane, East Falmouth, and Holmes McGrath is the engineer. There are some questions on this, Brian. Could you give some explanation? I know I've got the red line.
Mike was here, but just for your background, it was a definitive plan that was approved back in 1975. That's the definitive plan. So the way is a subdivision control approved way. It has frontage on that way. There's nothing in the decision, there's nothing on the plan that would indicate that no further subdivision is allowed absent a modification of your decision. So they have filed an approval not required plan here, even though that plan in front of you cites a covenant dated 1985. The covenant was given pursuant to a decision of the planning board when it endorsed an approval not required plan back then that modified the jury. It's a little convoluted, I'll say, I'll give you the background again. The covenant was not granted or a condition of your decision back in 1975. You laid out the bench. My recommendation to the board is that they're entitled to submit the plan to you for your endorsement, approval not required under the subdivision control law, but you are free to exercise your judgment as to whether or not you care to do so. Mike is here to answer any questions.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Mike in regard to this one, looking at it?
Well, yes.
Okay, Doug.
If you could just explain how, what qualifies the applicant to take this out of open space and put it into private ownership?
Sure. What I've done is I'm going to give you copies of a colored plan that I prepared.
Normally, they go through a hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Process. So this is sort of unusual, only because of the
Yeah, as you know, Mike, when we have an A&R, we don't go through a hearing process. It's really just questions to you.
I understand,
We have
but
it.
I thought it would be helpful to the planning board if I gave you a colored plan. Basically, what I've done is on your color plan, I show lot 16 that belongs to Gary Melconian. Has a house, a driveway, and a shed and a kennel. The shed and the kennel encroach across the property line. And then the other lot 9, has got sheds that encroach across the property line. And then if you look back at the rear of various lots that are on Pinecrest Beach Drive, they also have encroachments. So what we've done is, what we're doing is making lot 16 bigger by adding parcel A to lot 16, and the plan clearly shows that it's drainage and open space area, portion subject to a covenant with the date on it. I show the pipe location. There is a deep valley that is in the approximate location of the new lot line. So none of the runoff would ever reach, for instance, the remainder of parcel B or the location of the 2 wood sheds. So the other point we're doing is we're taking lot 9 and making it a lot bigger by, making it larger by adding parcel B. So the bottom line is, we're taking 2 existing lots, we're adding land to it, and the plan clearly shows that it's subject to the covenant. The covenant is 30 years old. The shed and the kennel have been there at least 18 years, and I don't know the date of some of the other encroachments. So we're just trying to fix a problem here.
Brian, with the A&R, if we endorse it, can we reiterate that such a covenant exists? That's what I thought.
you endorse a plan, your approval is not required, saying no further plan board supervision is necessary.
So, what's the pleasure of the planning board? Well,
Yeah.
Well, Mr. McGrath, it looks like on parcel B, there's also encroachment issues?
Yes, I just said that on parcel B, and on the rear of the lots that are on Pinecrest Beach Drive, almost every abutter's encroached onto the lot.
So,
Ken.
So how do you expect to resolve that when you're adding parcel B to lot 9, I think it is?
that's not our concern.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just asking for an approval not required. And we either give it or we don't. Ken?
Me just looking at this, taking 1.26 acres that is open space and adding it to an existing lot, and this 17,400 square foot that's open space, it looks bigger than the lot it is. Adding those to 2 lots is not an A&R, and I couldn't possibly endorse anything like that. This is taking open space that's been there for 30 years and saying because we have encroached the property, we want to take it out of open space. I don't see how we could do that.
That there is an open space covenant on.
I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that I don't see how we could do that, and I would never endorse that.
Doug, you had a question or a comment?
no, similar concern, I'd say he asked it for me.
Yeah, because that's why I asked the question of Brian. If we endorse it, it's the way it is.
I would remind the board that I clearly labeled it, that it is subject to a covenant recorded April 3rd, 1985, recorded. It says drainage and open space area. We're just conveying the interest in the open space to different people so that to solve the encroachments on lot 16 and lot 9. And the other encroachments, they've been there a long time.
Okay, Brian?
Encroachments aren't germane.
Right.
Right.
That's what I would say, that the encroachments have been there for a long time, and nobody's complained. They're fairly small sheds.
Parcel B.
Sheds can be moved off of open space.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion? Whether we are going to endorse or we are not going to endorse? Again,
I would make a motion that we do not endorse this A&R plan.
is there a second to that motion?
I would second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we do not endorse the A&R plan. Is there any further discussion? Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Paul is opposed. Ralph, did you say aye or no?
I said aye.
Aye, okay, so it's 6-1.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're moving on now to our discussion. Applicant Nathan Ellis Highway LLC for a special permit to use a portion of the property located at 210 Nathan S. Ellis Highway for a waste disposal contractor, WDC, J.E. Landers Colley, excuse me, as the engineer.
Would you rather look at a different page?
And as you will remember, there are 4 things that they are looking for. I'm sorry, I'm not finding that right. I thought you were putting that in the packet.
It won't be there. Chairman, you have their
Okay.
application letter, and their response to the second review criteria, and a copy of the bylaw that was
I have it. No, it's not in
Do
my
you want my
packet.
copy?
I would love it. Thank you. Oh, no, this isn't the one.
Oh,
It's the
not?
4 things that they're looking for.
Oh, from the
find it in my
applicant's list?
From the applicant and at the original application.
I see.
This has 4 things on it.
It's different than what I was looking for. Okay,
Are they this first thing?
I've-
This
yeah, I
is
know.
1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4.
So the four things they're looking for is in the order that they presented it: cardboard aggregation. Number 2 is food waste composting. Number 3 is storage and maintenance of disposal vehicles. And number 4 is storage and maintenance of disposal containers. Now, we can either take it in the order in which they asked for the special permit, or we can go to the easiest thing first, which I suspect is the cardboard aggregation. So it's the druthers of the planning board as to how you'd like to do it. With what, cardboard aggregation? Okay. So let me hear any comments on that, please. Yeah, Doug.
I think that's something that doesn't really need much control or regulation, and he's already provided an improved plan with a new area that's cardboard will be recycled on a concrete pad enclosed with the blocks. So I think that's an improvement to what he's already doing. So I'm okay with that.
Anybody else?
I would like to hear from the fire department on just the cardboard aggregation. Did we ever get anything clear from them? They said they were concerned about the whole site, fire protection, lack of water, and did that apply only to the composting, or did that also apply to the cardboard, is my question.
Brian, can you answer that? I thought it applied only to the composting, but Brian's got it there. Right.
Yeah, well,
He doesn't have to do his weightlifting tonight.
As I recall, we have a memorandum from the fire department, which is on the record. Answer that, that's
Okay, this is from Falmouth Fire Rescue Department. The Fire Rescue Department has reviewed the plans on file in the planning office and has the following concerns. 1, due to the size of the proposed area of windrows, the Fire Rescue Department will require 18-foot wide, 360-degree access around the waste compost area. Number 2, we will require a fire hydrant with adequate water supply for firefighting on site. Number 3, we will require power-operated equipment, dozer, scoop/shovel type vehicle available for moving stored material for firefighting. Number 4, we require further information concerning storage of other materials such as leaves, mulch, etc. So there was nothing in there specifically about cardboard.
Oh, but the last sentence says...
Yeah, well,
The
other
last sentence
materials.
Well, it
said,
said leaves, mulch.
excuse me,
et cetera.
It's, oh, okay, the et cetera could be interpreted.
Still have a question of the not having fire protection there and the combustible materials, the cardboard.
Okay.
And I would like to hear from the fire department specifically on that,
Okay.
if it hasn't been answered.
I think the referral speaks for itself. The record's closed, so you have to just use your...
Well, we require, has further information regarding the storage of other materials been provided to the fire department? Because this seems to have an open issue, is what I'm saying. My question is, number 4 here seems to be an open issue to me. It's the same one I brought up, and they've required additional information so that this isn't definitive.
See, I'll check with council, see if they can clarify that.
That's solely on this subject, that's solely a question I have.
I'd like to also remind the board at this point, too, that the decision has to be 90 days, within 90 days after the hearing is closed, so please don't feel pressured.
I'd like to see this, yes. You all should see it,
I'm just going to give it back.
give it back, so we don't lose it.
Are there
That's
any
personally
other-
how it is.
I have a copy.
Comments in regard to the cardboard?
My interpretation on that one was similar in the fact that I thought it was the windrows and the mulch and wood chips and all that are used in the composting. That was the question by the fire department. I thought the cardboard would have been okay from what I understood.
With the cardboard.
Yeah. That's how I interpreted that.
Well, Brian has said he will clarify that with town council, so what I thought was going to be easy. Looks like we got a question that has to be asked. But I would go further on that too, because if we are going to allow it, I think it's going to have to be repeated what they said about how much is going to be done, which is on page 5 of the May 7th letter. It says max number of recycling and removal trips to be permitted per week, 10. Max volume / weight of cardboard to be allowed on site, 60 tons, which is 2 loads using currently owned equipment. So I think if we are going to allow that by their own testimony here, we could limit it.
I mean, I got the impression that it wasn't going to be staying there very long. It was going to be there and aggregated and had moved off-site, so I didn't look at it as that big of a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Because a windrow might be where that's a fire that can fester and smolder and you're not even aware of it, but where a cardboard might go up, that I would think would be easily suppressed with the equipment that's there.
I also think that when you're dealing with cardboard, when you have a stack of it, you don't have great flammability because you don't have air getting into it.
And the fact that it's not going to be there for very long.
Well, if they're looking at 10 trips per week, that's 2 per day,
Right.
business days.
Yeah.
So they're going to have quick turnover of any of the cardboard, I would think. Okay. Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, we could condition that there be a portable fire extinguisher next to the bin if we're unable to get any change from the fire department as far as that requirement is concerned.
That, of course, is the other thing that contains it, is the concrete bin that they're going to be aggregating it in. So that would contain anything that, in my mind, would be fire hazard. So it looks like, barring anything from the fire department,
Or from town council.
right, you know, town council, if he says, yes, we can have that clarified. If he doesn't, we have to go with what is. But it looks like, barring any change in that, you know, that
But we can wait till we're here.
we can wait.
So, okay, so let's,
But, you know, I am getting the sense that we're okay with this, and I would like to
I mean,
myself put in the,
I actually have a concern about, I think a pile of cardboard outside in a high wind condition could actually turn into a huge roaring fire, and without fire protection being around it, I have a concern. I wanted to know what the fire department
Okay.
thought about it, that's all. I don't have an opinion on whether it's safe or not. I was hoping the fire department would do that, and I didn't get the comfort from the letter that I saw there.
okay. So
That's my
Brian will
concern.
contact town council.
We have to go on it, then I'd be willing to listen to conditions that other members have brought up, but I'd first like to
Sure,
see what,
fine, that's fine. Okay, then, you want to go on to the food waste composting, or do you want to go on to storage and maintenance of disposal
Let's do the storage, maintenance.
of disposal vehicles?
Yeah.
Okay. Got so many papers here, it gets a little difficult. All right. What I understand that they are asking for is 15 trash trucks, 11 vehicles to be shared, thanks, between both the disposal and the construction company. Those are 8 roll-off trucks, 2 swap load trucks, and 1 forklift. And then we have been told that there will be a maximum of 100 dumpsters on site, whether it's for the disposal company or Cavosa Excavation. So that would be the limit of the dumpsters on site. And when I looked at the prior permits, which I believe you have in here, what was permitted under Exhibit A, which was the whole list that we looked at back in, I think it was August 2014. There were a total of 45 vehicles at that point and an unknown number of dumpsters, so therefore unlimited number of dumpsters. So if we go by this list, excuse me, if we go by this list, plus what they're now proposing, I come up with something like 171, I think, with the mental math I did, vehicles total on the site. Now, remember, we cannot do any constraints on what the number of vehicles that they have with the construction or the excavation company.
You
Yes,
said
Ken?
171. Are you talking about pieces of equipment?
Yeah, I'm talking about the whole aggregate, the dumpsters,
trucks.
Oh,
the trucks.
dumpsters and trucks, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that are both with the excavation company and with the disposal company. So I just wanted to do that little exercise myself to give you a feeling of the number of vehicles that might be on the property. Because the question in my mind is, we cannot limit how many might be there for the excavation company. We can limit these with the special permit for the disposal company. So the question in my mind, and I have no answer to that, is how many vehicles would be too many on that property? Because remember, the only control we have is with the special permit. So I'd be looking for comments.
It is limited to 100 dumpsters, right?
Correct.
No matter what, they're not differentiating between one or the other.
That's what we
So
were
we do have a
told.
limitation of 100.
Correct.
And prior to that, we didn't have one.
That's correct.
100 dumpsters takes up a lot of square footage.
And conceptually, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it does, obviously. And remember, the dumpsters are varying sizes too.
And I think they've clearly identified the areas on the plan where the dumpster storages are, right? It's shown,
Uh-huh,
and so I think we have control over it. It has to be in those areas.
yes,
I'm comfortable with that.
with the square footage in those areas. Okay. Does anybody else have comments? Rob?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat self-regulating. If they were to get approval for more dumpsters than they could comfortably maneuver around and use and bring in and take out, I think, they'd be slitting their own throats. So they're not going to do that. They're not going to just use it as a place to store things. They have to move those things in and out. So to me, the number that they're requesting probably makes sense because, like I said, it's self-regulating. They're not going to put more in there to inhibit their ability to use the facility for what it's designed.
Okay, Paul, you had a comment?
Well, the testimony on this issue was that the applicant does not make money by storing dumpsters. He wants to move them off the
Right.
site. So I don't believe that's a big issue because he's much more effective in his business if he has the dumpsters out and dumping them and moving them around. So the question is not the storage on the site, but how quickly he gets them off the site, and how he can efficiently run his business. So I don't think the numbers are that critical.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the number of vehicles on
Okay.
the property. I mean, this is what we wanted this type of zoning for. so we can keep contractors in town. They have a place to store their equipment and their trucks, and like Val says, he's not going to overdo it so that he can't maneuver and get his
Yeah.
equipment in and out, so.
Please be aware, I'm not indicating for or against, I just brought it out so we would have a thorough discussion
Yeah.
of what we're looking at here.
Well, I think it clears up before we were having questions about what was in what dumpster, and was this a trash dumpster, or was it for something else? I think now we got 100 dumpsters, we got a spot where they go, and I think it's clear. Hopefully, they're never here, and they're all out working, but if they had to come to the site, they got to stay in the areas that designate on the plan.
Do you have a comment, Dick?
No, I just, that, as many times as I've drive by there, I see a very small amount of dumpsters. So the 100 may be the amount that they own, but you usually don't see anything near that on site. Usually, I believe they pick them up, dump them, and bring them to the next site, rather than bring them to the yard.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Right.
Ken, do you have any comments?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, so we're all in agreement with what is being requested under the special permit then?
Yes.
Okay. The other part of that request is maintenance of disposal vehicles. And if you will look on the May 7th letter, which I don't know if you all have or not, on page 4. You may not have it, I don't know.
Oh, the old,
Yeah, I brought my whole stack of everything here tonight. It's on page 4. Okay. The question that was asked is, describe the types of on-site truck/equipment servicing requested to be allowed on site. And there is a huge list of everything here, which to my mind is like a full-service repair. It's everything you could ever want. They could drop the transmission out of the vehicles. And the question is, previously, there was not this full service allowed. It was fairly limited. If there was engine work that needed to be done, it had to be done off-site. They could do windshield wipers and change tires and that sort of thing. But nothing as extensive as this. Is that something that we want to entertain on this site? Doug?
I think yes, and I think it's inevitable. Anyone who has this much equipment is going to have to do the mechanic work in-house. I think we might want to condition that the work be done in the building where the oil drain and the trap is to catch that. I think that's the only place they would want to do it anyway. But it could be a time when too many vehicles are broke and they start working outside. That might not be appropriate.
That was my concern.
Right.
Anybody else has concerns or not on this?
That would be my only concern, is when you're talking about fluids that are possibly being removed or drained, that would be the only thing. All the other stuff, I mean, it just comes along with the business. I mean, you're just changing out different things that really isn't a matter of hazardous materials or anything like that, so.
Okay, so we're comfortable with this request, but that it should be limited for any type of the repair, things where they're working with fluids, obviously not a windshield wiper change, but anything that they're working with the engines and with the possible mechanics that could contaminate the site. It must be done inside,
I would say so.
okay? All right. And we have storage and maintenance of disposal containers. And what I recall they were asking for is to be able to clean and repaint the dumpsters. Any comments on that? Jim?
I think they have to be able to, we don't want them to have to take them someplace else and do them, and that's what this site's for. They should be able to maintain their equipment there.
Okay. Again, though, when we're talking about fluids that might contaminate the soil and the groundwater, should the cleaning of these dumpsters be done in the building? I don't know how it's going to be done. Or a place where there is under
They
drainage.
have a outdoor cleaning pad
They do.
in addition to the indoor oil drain catch. So I think that's the intended location for cleaning.
So we should stipulate that the cleaning of the dumpsters be done where there is underdrainment.
I would think so, yes.
Ralph?
Yeah, I asked that question previously, and they said that they have drains on that, in that area, and that the drains go into a tank, and the tank is dumped periodically. The fluid from cleaning does not leach into the ground.
But again, we're being careful because we want to condition things so that we feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so that would be the condition on that. We have no problem with their cleaning, maintaining in any other way but
Right.
that. Okay. So now we go to the food waste composting. Comments on that, please. Jim?
Well, I did not hear enough that gives me any comfort at all that the smells would be contained on the site. And I would have a hard time approving anything that would have smells leaving the site and affecting neighbors. I feel the same way about sound. And smells even, well, it depends, but they're both real serious, and I thought they made a good attempt on it, but not thorough enough, and I don't think it's necessary for the site. And I'm not in a position where I could judge whether the site's large enough or not from the information that I was given. So I could not determine that the site's adequate to contain the smell, from what I heard. That's my opinion.
Actually, yeah, that was given to us by the report from Gradient in relationship to where the housing structures are. Remember that the measurement was done by the applicant from the center of the composting pile to the house, not the property line. And Gradient indicated that, and other reports also have indicated that the odor goes to background after 820 to 1,640 feet. And so of the 10 residences in that area, 7 would be affected, potentially, by the odor, which I think is far more than I would want.
I think one's too many.
Yeah. But when you have 7, too, that shows that there's just not quite enough space there. Ken?
One other thing too that I wanted to comment on is the fact that from the property should be at the people's property line.
Right,
There
not
should
the-
never be odor on anybody's property. If somebody wants to sit out and have a picnic or
Yeah.
under their tree in the front yard, they shouldn't be smelling anything. So
If they
all
had a-
those numbers did not sit well with me.
They had a 10-acre site and their house was on the back, they have the right to have
Every bit of
uncovered
their-
front yard as well.
every bit of their
That's
property.
same- We dealt with the same issue on sound and other issues, and we decided it was the property line when we did the wind turbines.
The other problem I have is with bioaerosols, and it's about the same, it's a little bit of a shorter distance, which can lead to all kinds of problems, too. Doug?
So, yeah, I agree. I think that the site is a little too tight to try to fit this in, for one. It's a little too close to the neighbors. I don't think that they demonstrated enough training or skill of the employee to work there, because it is a little more complicated than we were first led to believe. There's a lot of monitoring required. The biggest thing for me is the fact that this can create spontaneous combustion, and that could really be an odor, you know? Whether or not the machine is able to put it out, or the fire department is able to put it out, that would be an event that would be really unpleasant.
Yeah.
And so without the firefighting capability and the negative referral between that and the other factors, I would have to say no on that.
Okay.
Having reviewed this application and gone through numerous other reports and looking at the technology involved in doing a windrow, open air type of composting, I didn't see anything that gave me a whole lot of comfort when it came to that. The other component to this is the vermin. There wasn't a whole lot that was spoken about that, but this will attract rodents. I know just from us having a small home composter, having vermin show up and having to get rid of it just because of a small home composter. So not only do you have flies and rats and mice, but you get skunks and you can get seagulls, crows. I mean, you get all kinds of vermin that would be attracted to this. And I just don't see the amount of space that would be dedicated to this as being adequate. Because everything else I looked at was like 15 acres for a lot of them. So I think if this was a state-of-the-art digester that we were going to be putting in there, that'd be a different thing. But just the technology is old. I don't see where the maintenance of it would be adequate using a front-end loader as opposed to a churner. Isn't what I would consider to be the best way to go about doing it.
Okay, the other thing that troubled me too is that where Doug said he was not convinced, and I think a number of people were not convinced about these knowledge of this, evidenced by the applicant, that it was testified that this would simply be an experiment to see how it works. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel like putting the residents in, with having an experiment in their backyard of this nature. That if anything were to go further, it wouldn't be on this site. Once everything was worked out, it would be somewhere else, probably not in Falmouth. So that in itself says, I don't think I want an experiment going on. It also says that the applicant has not trained in depth or doesn't have anybody trained in depth as to how to operate one of these sites. So that troubles me too. So we don't want food waste composting is what I'm hearing here. We still, you want compost?
Make a decision, or you want?
No, I'm saying this is what everybody has said.
I'm saying,
I know.
I have three concerns.
Okay.
One is the adequacy of public services, namely the fire department, I think is a very critical thing we need to address. Secondly, I don't see a proper operation and maintenance protocol. This is a very complex way of doing things, and I don't see it being addressed. The statement was made, we've been doing it for 20 years. Well, they're not doing food waste for 20 years. They're really doing leaf and other items. And mixing that with the food waste creates their own set of issues that need to be addressed in a very comprehensive way. It's a very difficult thing to do. And thirdly, there's concerns about the location in a corner there. We keep hearing that they're going to compost within 90 days. Well, you can only compost within 90 days if you have proper turnover and proper use of the windrows. If you can't really get to it and you don't have space between them to turn over the soil, you're not going to compost in 90 days. So the numbers, as presented by Mrs. Viella, don't add up from my perspective, because I went back and looked at that, and it doesn't seem to make sense from an operational standpoint on the size of material and how long they have to operate there. So those are my three big concerns with this facility.
Okay, so I think we've all weighed in on this. Ralph?
I'm at the end, but I didn't weigh in.
Oh, I thought you, I'm sorry.
I'm at the end of the table, First of all, I think we need to thank the applicant for producing all of the information that we asked for. And we also need to thank the citizens of the town for taking their time to testify for us. I spent some time, as everybody on this board did, and I looked at the gradient report this morning, and I got some information. There's a statement on page 5 under odor control. It says aerobic conditions often result in less objectionable odors than anaerobic, which really surprised me because I thought it was the opposite. And the reason for that is that when oxygen is involved, it oxidizes some of the components that create odors. So the old tech of windrows seems to be more, if done properly, less odoriferous. Now, also in that same page, the author says that the individual compounds that are odorous are common. The common ones are ammonia and hydrogen sulfide. Now, I don't have a chart at home like we did in our chemistry classes in high school that gives you the weight, the molecular weight of these things. So I found out that both ammonia and hydrogen sulfide are lighter than air. So they will tend to rise. If they rise, they are then susceptible to wind. And that's what we're concerned about, is these odors leaving the property, not being contained on the property. I was really glad when I found out that they were both lighter than air, and I'm thinking that people that work at the facility are probably also glad that they're lighter than air. When you get into the special permit procedure, which we do fairly regularly, it leads us through a bunch of procedures, one of which is a site plan review. So then you got to go to site plan review and you look that up, and then you take a look at what are the requirements under site plan review and all that, and you get into what site plan review calls nuisance, and then you have to look up the word nuisance, and they're actually under the definition in our bylaws, nuisance does refer to the degradation of property values, and also the degradation caused by odors. So it's not as though those things aren't considered all the way through the process that we're going through right here. I think everybody is in favor of composting because the state itself talks about how by not composting we're filling up our landfills and so forth, and how they want to reduce the stream of materials that are going into landfills, and this is a great way to do it. Composting makes sense in all kinds of ways, but I'm afraid that comments that have been made already about the fact that this is an experiment, and if it's an experiment and it would prove to be successful, it would then have to be moved to some other site. So why not do the experiment at a site where it can be expanded? I do feel as though the site is very limited in space. The last thing is, when you, research shows that when you try to turn a windrow with other than a machine that's designed to do that, you don't get homogeneous turning, and you therefore end up with spots in the windrow that are not homogeneous. They're loaded with things that need to be turned. And Mr. Cavosa does not have that type of machine. He's planning to turn the windrows with a front-end loader. And that's all relates to the economic feasibility of the whole thing and how much you can invest in equipment and so forth. And it's not an easy decision for Mr. Cavosa or for us. So I just feel as though this, although I believe in the total concept of what's being proposed, I just feel that the site is not adequate, and that the person, Mr. Cavosa and his company that are proposing this, don't have the experience nor the equipment to be successful in demonstrating that this would work.
Okay. So, now we're 100%. But the flip side of this is too, remember, Mr. Cavosa is composting. there is a group 1 and a group 2 of compostable materials. And under the LIC, whereas he could do it under Ag AA, under LIC, we would still need to issue, is my belief, a special permit for the kind of composting that he's currently been doing, because that's not covered under LIC.
It's my understanding that he was grandfathered from changing the zoning from AA, because that's what he did, was that.
We'll look that up for you.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't think so.
That was the question that we brought up before, during the first permit about that. If he, when he came, the applicant came, and I was under the impression that it was, the composting would be continuable because of the rezoning.
Pre-existing non-conforming
Pre-existing
use is what
Right.
you're saying, because we changed it. Sounds like it. I'd like an opinion.
But let's have that decided. And then the next question is, the fire department wants the accessibility. And that does not go away, I think, because we're being asked for a special permit here. So that's something else. Okay, so Brian is going to find out whether this is a pre-existing non-conforming, the composting of group 1.
Yeah, we'll make sure you have the right citations. If you're going to allow something to happen, you have to review under the special permit. You won't have to worry about anything that has a sort of vested right except for the Board of Appeals issue. So what I have for the board is that you're, from your discussion, is you're leaning towards the MSW trucks, you're leaning towards the MSW dumpsters, you want some more information, at least a little bit of a clarification from the fire department folks in regards to the aggregate cardboard fire suppression. And it looks like you want me to write you up a motion here 2 weeks ahead as an application, or as a proven part of denying one.
Okay,
We haven't we haven't discussed hours of operation.
that's correct. That was next on the list, okay? Because it is a special permit, we do have that capacity to put some parameters on there. And,
I just want to clarify something you just said.
sure,
When the area was rezoned to light industrial A, he doesn't, the applicant cannot compost without a special permit.
by right, under light industrial C.
He cannot.
That's correct.
So if this is turned down, he's not permitted to compost any materials until he comes back to the planning board for a special permit.
Well, this is what Brian is going to look at, because although this is food waste
That's what I thought you
composting.
said. I just want to make sure that's what
Yeah.
I understood.
Right,
There are groups of composting that the board can allow. One for every other. You may, in your discretion, decide that one is okay but the other is not. So I'll make sure it fits the other.
It's a very big issue.
and then the next question is whether the fire department's requirement, if it's pre-existing non-conforming, would that apply or not? As is.
Your procedure, you're issuing a permit for something to happen in this. What about the interesting non-conforming? Focus on what you want to.
Okay.
Okay?
You can always go back to town meeting and change it back to agricultural, I guess.
Okay, hours of operation. Under the special permit, the hours of operation were 6 to 10 at night. They are looking to have it from midnight on. And comments on that, please.
I have a question. Does the town, I'm not sure, is there a bylaw for contractors' yards? Any hours of operation in contractors' yards?
We have set those hours of operation before.
But in light industrial C, I can't remember, was there hours of operation established in that?
No. No, those have been set by the board when the applicant comes before us. There have been a few times since I've been on the board that I remember that. And one of the big triggers was, it was in a residential area. A couple of them were in residential areas where early would disturb the residents.
Right now, the Board of Health has basically said there is no limitation on the trash trucks coming to anywhere in town and picking up trash. There used to be a noise violation and they couldn't do it, but now they can show up at 3 in the morning and listen to the beep beep and take the dumpster out and crash. Not here, just anywhere. I mean, that's not, it's kind of like off our site. I happen to,
Mr. Corvosa can pick up trash anywhere in town, nobody else.
Right.
Between those hours.
That is correct.
He has the authorization, not anyone else. That's only Mr. Corvosa. That's what the Board of Health gave him. Not any other contractor that wants to come into the town and do that.
What, the hours?
Board of Health.
I don't.
you know, I'd be concerned he needs to keep noise on the site and not disturb his neighbors. I mean, you can do it without driving them crazy, but we wouldn't let anybody do anything on a site if it was making noise at 3 in the morning and disturbing the neighbors, or 4 in the morning. If we're, no, this is a special permit now, we're now being asked, that's the question. I have to live next to a commercial site and I hear them come at 3 in the morning, 3 and 4, it's not the greatest thing to have happen
That wakes
on
you
Tuesday mornings, yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple family friends that live with my parents too, the same difference, and I disagree with the Board of Health.
So do
And
I.
I do not think anybody in this town should be driving trucks around at 3 and 4 in the morning.
By the way, our decision does not have to
No,
coincide with the board.
no,
You
I understand that. I'm just saying, my opinion is that it shouldn't be allowed.
So the hours under the special permit were 6 to 10, and we debated long and hard about that. Because previously it had been 7, which was the normal hours that were set for these sorts of things, to I think it was 7 p.m., a 12-hour stretch.
Well, in a perfect world, if you could have everything the way you want it, sure. But we don't work in a perfect world. My father drove a truck in the city of Boston for 45 years. He couldn't go in when he felt like it because he was under certain restrictions when he could go in and make deliveries. As a builder, what time can you start?
Yeah.
I mean, you have limits on when you can start.
7 o'clock, I've been told you can't work on Sundays, they've been
Yeah.
shut down, you know.
I mean, we all have limitations
Yeah.
on what we can do. I mean, there are a lot of times, if I'm working inside, I'd love to be there 5 in the morning and start banging away, but I can't.
Well, I think if he's impacting his neighbors, I don't think we have to go in and say what you're doing on that site. If there's a noise complaint coming and it's coming off site, there's got to be a problem. I don't think we want to give him a right to just go ahead and make noise at 2, 3, 4, even 5. I'm in favor of the old hours myself.
So am I.
Yeah, so that's
6
where I
to
was
10.
going.
With the exceptions being snow plowing or emergency assistance.
Emergencies, yeah.
And that was unlimited. Okay,
And I would be willing to consider maybe another hour earlier, just to get a couple of critical stops done, but that would be my limit.
5 to 10 is what you're saying.
Right.
Yes,
If I
Paul?
remember correctly, both the fire department and police department recommended he can operate 24 hours a day. And that was part of the testimony to the health department, or the health department,
But he can,
that he can
for
operate
their
24 hours.
need, fire
Based
and
on their
police.
needs, he can operate 24
Mhm.
hours. And they used that as part of the information for their decision to allow Mr. Garosi to operate 24
Okay.
hours.
So we're not saying he can't. We're saying emergencies. When he's called by the police or the fire to help them out, he can do so.
And we're just saying what can happen on the site. if he has a truck or two out and about doing his business, as long as they're not disturbing the site, how he manages that is his business.
So what is the feeling of the board here? What's the consensus on that to give Brian some direction?
I'm in consensus to the old hours,
6
to
to
6
10.
to 10.
Same here.
Me too.
And I'd go to 5, but it looks like I'm alone.
Jim?
I could move an hour, but I don't think it should be 24 hours.
Okay. Ralph?
Yeah, I like the idea of moving it up till 5 o'clock, but no later than that. But the whole reason for the request is to avoid traffic problems, trying to pick up trash, and refuse, and cardboard and everything else during the day when all of this traffic, when we as citizens use the roads. So he's trying to avoid that by operating in the wee hours. So that it's not as though it's not necessarily a economic reason that he's requesting that. It's to accommodate us as the citizens. So I agree with Doug. I would go to 5 o'clock, and that would be the max. But I wouldn't go any. I'd say 10 to 5, and that would be okay with me.
That they're closed 10 to 5.
Well,
Hours of operation 5 a.m.
yeah,
to 10.
5 a.m. to
5 to
10
10.
p.m.
Okay. We can debate this further, you understand? Yes, Paul?
We spent a lot of time talking about this in one of the previous meetings.
We
and
did.
We agonized over we should increase it from 7 to 7 to 6 to 10. And we spent an awful lot of time doing that and agonizing over that. I thought those hours were probably appropriate for the needs of the community. I don't particularly have a problem with extending it an hour, but I would not be in favor of more than that, frankly.
So does everybody want to think about it for another week, and whatever Brian writes up, we can keep or change? We seem to all be set on 10 as a reasonable hour not to disturb the neighborhood.
And 5.
No, we're not
No,
set on 5.
five
There's
could be
debate
6,
going on
yeah.
here. It's either 5 or 6. Okay. Now, is there anything else that we should be bringing up under a special permit that you have thought of when you've been reading all the reports?
There was so much time put into the composting and researching. I mean, that was the biggest
It was.
thing that I did and looked at.
You know, if we're going to be limiting the amount of cardboard, I'm not saying we should, I'm saying they requested a certain amount. Should we also require that records be kept on site that can be inspected at any time as to how much is moved?
How much cardboard is moved?
Correct.
As I recall, the DEP doesn't have any rules regarding.
They don't, I'm saying they.
I'm happy with the
testified to
area.
Just
It's
the area
I'm
where it
confined
is.
to the area,
Okay.
yeah.
And 10 trips per week.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I asked you to think and throw out any questions you might have still.
Yeah, I mean, the cardboard doesn't impact anybody.
No, doesn't.
I mean, if it was 20 trips a week, would it really matter? No. I mean, it's moving the recyclable stuff, so I don't have any issue with that.
One other question I had meant to bring up was, what were the special conditions on the special permit before? Matt McNamara had recommended that we incorporate previous decisions. Is there something there we should discuss and concern ourselves with? Because it seemed like it might be a good suggestion. And I wasn't here for that, so I don't know. I guess I should go back and review that for next week.
I didn't have a copy of that. Presumably it's in the file folder. my recollection is that a lot of what he was citing, the ZBA puts in as their requirements. And, sorry, but I didn't look at it, so I'm not sure. I can't have a comment on that. Brian's got it right there, so we can take a look at it and see.
Well, in this case, we are the special permit granting authority. They're
understand.
not going to the ZBA. This is it.
But he's just
That's
reminding us
correct.
that there
Right.
were previous, and they might be good to revisit.
And I thought that's what we're doing right now.
Well, these are things that they put in,
Right.
a special permit, requirements that they put in. Okay, one of the questions I had written down, flipping back to the repair shop, do you want to limit it to Cavosa vehicles only? Or
Yes.
once he establishes a repair shop, can he take in any trucks?
No.
To repair.
In-house.
It would be for the vehicles that are being stored
Okay.
on site.
Okay. So that's going to be limited.
I don't know what that entails.
What is it, Doug?
Oh, just, he pointed out that number 7 on these conditions is no operations allowed under the special permit shall interfere with the uses authorized by special permit issued by the zoning board of appeals. I guess that's a good caveat. But will there be a special permit by the ZBA now?
No, you won't.
No.
Special permit that issued from the Board of Appeals for the cell tower,
Okay,
and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, both storage. These for the cell tower. So what the commenter is speaking to is, this special permit shouldn't interfere with the permit issued by the board. And we'll write that to the extent that's.
number 1 is a notation that the special permit is granted to the applicant only, not transferable to go with the land. We should consider that, I guess.
Brian, you're writing these down?
I'd like to talk
I'm
about
not even
that.
listening.
I'd like to
Yes,
talk
you
about
want-
that one.
You want the special permit not to run with the land, but with.
Correct, with the owner.
The corporation.
With the corporation, so, but if the whole corporation was sold, then it would run
The permit will extinguish.
on sale. That's pretty harsh. Does that need to, I just want to talk about that
It's a
more.
special permit for this individual. If he sells it, you have no idea what another individual may do to the property. I mean, that's my
understand.
opinion.
I understand. We're putting
And they-
conditions on them that go, no matter who's doing it, though.
Well, a potential
I'm not
new owner
advocating
could
one or
come
the
to
other, I'm
us.
having a discussion
Yeah.
here. I want to talk about it.
And a potential new owner could come to us and say, if we purchase this, can it be issued, I suspect, but no?
The town does it for earth moving permits, it's 3 years, and it runs with the owner, and it has to be renewed. So you have other options, you could say, not extinguish, you have to reopen the hearing, you have to show us who you are. Typically speaking, that could be cumbersome in the past, or simply limited the issuance of the permit to that corporate entity.
Would they have the ability to, I guess they would, to come back if there was if they wanted to sell the business, they'd have to come back for a new special permit.
Depends on how you condition your special permit.
Well, I would like us to think about that, having them come back and come, as opposed to just saying no, because it just ends the business. And I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think the idea of us reviewing it again is important.
Yeah, I'm not just saying I'm all for everything on there. I'm just
Right.
pointing out that those are what
I'm
we're
not
looking
deciding either, I'm just bringing it up for conversation. It seemed kind of harsh, and maybe not in our best interests, that if he ever sold it, that this facility that we need just goes away. Is that what we want? That's what I'm asking.
Ken?
My opinion on this is that a special permit that we issue is for an individual a company, a person. We are not setting forth standards here that can be sold. Should not be creating anything in this special permit process that is a monetary thing, or giving this business owner the right to run his business. And that's how I see it.
Well, what we're doing is giving a permit for the business on this particular piece of land, not to the land that would then run forward.
Jim, what is it that you find a little bit onerous?
Well, say something happened to Carl, he has to sell it, and next year, this whole thing goes away. We no longer have this facility we need. I just think we need to think this carefully.
What is the alternative?
Well, I didn't, that they would have to come back and the
mean the new owner?
new owner would have to come in and go through a process and prove that he can do it. So we don't carte blanche flip it over, but at least have some kind of review.
But I think
It's for discussion, I'm not suggesting,
Right, but what Ken says is absolutely true. You issue a special permit to an individual or a company, you don't issue it to the property.
I don't know if that's entirely true. I see buildings with special permits that transfer.
This is not a building.
And now we're saying this is non-transferable. The board can limit the issuance of the special permit, narrow the focus and scope, right down to an individual.
We can, right.
Or you can simply issue the special permit, and there's no condition in there that requires its reestablishment if there's a change in ownership, or its extinguishment if there's a change in ownership. That is how you condition your special permit. So I will write the motion that has the language for you, which is not to discuss, and then you can then discuss and vote to the extent you want to limit that, whether it's to a corporate entity or time, whatever it may be.
Any other comments on that?
No,
You have
there was some comments about traffic, and I'm up and down that road all the time, and for the most part, they're out during the day, so I don't really see where there'd be any need for signage or anything like that. Besides, it's a state highway, they can't do that. I find that Ballymead coming in and out of there causes more problems than Cabosa going in and out of his. I actually look forward to trucks or vehicles stopping somewhere down that, so I can pull out of Boxbury Hill Road, because people come flying down there 60, 70 miles an hour now. So, when I can sneak out, when there's been a lot of traffic, I know somebody's waiting to make a left-hand turn somewhere. So I don't see where that's a problem or needed a traffic study or anything like that.
Anybody else with?
I have one last concern.
Okay.
So I wish that we could get one more look while the fire department is considering Jim's request for another review. I'd like to know if there's any concern about the overall site and any suggestions they might make that could lead to some type of condition that might be helpful. Maybe there would be some sort of cans of foam fire suppressant or something with a site that doesn't have adequate water for firefighting. Because even though we're not doing the food waste composting, I was pretty surprised to find out that they only had a well that produces 75 gallons on the previous approval. So just looking for just a little more input, and maybe there's some condition that might help that.
I wouldn't want to have foam that creates its own carcinogenic effects.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't want to have foam used on the site because that creates its own problems, some of which are expected to be carcinogenic. So I would not want to see foam on the site.
I would just like to hear the fire department say it's adequate.
What?
Whatever fire protection we condition this, that's adequate fire protection
For what
for what we're
we're
allowing.
going to allow.
I mean, part of the concern is the composting now. The two things that are flammable is the cardboard, and they're still going to be doing some compost, not food, but that could catch fire, and we're still a long ways away from those fire hydrants. We still have to come across the highway or down a ditch, and I didn't get comfort on fire protection.
But that has to do with whether it's grandfather too, maybe. And so can that be imposed because this is a new request?
Well, they just might have a helpful suggestion.
Yes. Ken?
One question as we were discussing this was making me wonder, the original composting, I believe probably wasn't as big as this windrow thing. So even if this is something we have to think about as a board here too, with the fire system that they have in place, the water, if this is 2 to 3 times larger, then there's that much greater chance for, as Jim said, the combustible material happening.
I don't think we're gonna just let them stay with what they're doing. I don't think we're gonna increase this because it doesn't meet the fire department's.
No, I'm not saying to increase, but this is what we have to, as a board, discuss, because if they are grandfathered, they could still be doing this, that big of a compost area.
Now, Ken was wondering what they're composting now. Is it smaller than the proposed site? So are they looking to increase the composting aside from adding food waste into it?
We knew they were gonna, with food waste, enlarge it, but that still could create an issue from what the fire department said, the windrows. They weren't talking about the odorous, they were talking about the windrows being turned, not enough space. They wanted 360 for composting, period, not food waste and or so total composting. So that puts a whole nother spin on what I was thinking about. I was concerned about the windrows being turned for the odor. They needed to be turned for the heat suppression. If it's just mulch and leaves and things of that nature.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of right now with this particular permit that we're being asked for?
Were there any encroachment issues that were brought up? Because if there are any encroachment issues, I'd like to see them cleaned up.
Yeah, there were a few.
So I would like to condition that.
Yeah, one of them that I know is the boulder pile that is going to be, told it was going to be moved back.
I just want to make this nice and tidy and neat. So
That any encroachments, whether they be with the state or with
yes,
border encroachments,
right.
okay, have to be cleaned up.
I never got straightened out about the wildlife corridor. What
Was never
that?
answered.
Okay.
There was supposed to be a wildlife corridor.
So that's another reason to revisit the old special permit.
Okay, I don't remember where that wildlife corridor was supposed to be. Long-term memory.
Way down there.
Okay.
No. Way down there somewhere.
Any other concerns that anybody has? Please remember that Brian will bring some answers back, maybe even a draft decision, and do not feel compelled, because we have until August to render the final decision on this. And we want to do it very carefully. Okay, are you ready to move on?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, next on the agenda, and, maybe I should call a small recess, because it looks like everybody's got a bolt. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Please.
Please,
Thank you.
just finish. I guess we are.
looking at marine district language. And
The board indicated you want to revisit the article, you should have it in your package. That was turned down, Article 23, of the special town meeting. Last, April. And you have a copy of that in your package, and the board wanted to revisit that question. Discuss it tonight, the decisions. The sense I got was that you wanted to revisit it. That's why on the agenda, there's a copy of the article that didn't have. That's the extent of
okay, so just, do we want to revisit this? Ken?
I thought we did, and Ralph had brought up a point, that nobody from the board spoke about this at the town meeting, as to the reason for it. And it makes sense, if we endorsed it, maybe somebody should have spoke up. I know this one's such a controversy, and that's why we did not want to endorse the rezoning, because we know that would never go well. We tried some of that before and got nothing but a lot of
It's been
negative.
kind of tradition, though, that when it's a petitioner's article, they
Right.
do the total presentation. That's why there was no speaking for it.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
And I think if the board feels that it's necessary that there be somebody from the planning board speaking to a petitioner's article, that we make that very clear to begin with, that should be done. And make it clear to the petitioner, too.
I had the same comments from former planning board members that, not that we have to make a presentation, but to briefly state why we agreed with the petitioner. So I think that was something we should consider.
And that's usually put in the explanation.
Right, but it's still not
And
quite
it's
the
not
same
verbal.
as getting up and saying it.
Right.
I thought that the last suggestion that Mr. Ahmet made, I thought was reasonable. I don't think town meeting agreed with our feeling. I don't know what else we could do. I thought it was the best
Yeah.
chance for relief for that property owner.
And part of the feeling in town meeting is, and I know I'm of both minds, so I'm kind of torn on that, is that once you lose a specific marine usage, you don't get it back. And we don't have very much marine usage.
Right.
I understand these.
But we're talking about a percentage.
These aren't even marine
They don't even-
Well,
issues.
my understanding of this, my thoughts on this is why the marine zone was created, because we did not want residential use, because condos were coming in and taking over our harbor and just tearing down all the marine uses and putting down condos.
Right.
I think this language gives some flexibility for a property owner to have marine uses and just move them around and not be told that you can't have an extra 500 feet here or 600 feet there. They still can't put condos in, and they still have to have marine uses on the site. Now, this is, I believe the discussion is just about the percentage. Is that correct?
Right now, it's a percentage.
Right, no, but they didn't want to change it. He was trying to,
It's not what it says here.
I thought he was trying to change, as long as they had marine uses on the site, and they couldn't have,
No, it was-
the restrictions for residential use is still there.
It was to change the use on the site that didn't front on the water.
Right,
That for non-marine related uses, allow them more space for
more,
non-
right,
Or
but
area
not
limitation.
100%, but not 100%,
Well, I
just
think
an allocation.
I think it would exempt them from marine use if they don't front on the water. I believe that's what we were trying to
Okay.
approve.
But they still can't put condos in.
Right.
It's still marine zone, right?
And the language would allow, right now the Board of Appeals can allow up to 50%.
Right.
So the language would have changed, that the Board of Appeals may waive, they could go 55%,
So
65, or they
we're
could
just
go-
giving more discretion to the Board of Appeals, but they can't make it go away. They can't say, okay, now you can put condos on that space.
Correct. The
Or
use might
100%.
be an office
Or-
use,
right.
it's not marine related right now, or a restaurant. The restaurant can only be 50% of the building. So it might be the Board of Appeals in its discretion, you could give them 75%. Or if you're the Flying Bridge, well, there's a restaurant in that area,
100%.
they may make it 100%, but that would give them, right now they're tied to 50%, that's the ceiling. This would then grant the Board of Appeals the discretion to go up to 100%,
But it's still-
And you can't have the residential use.
Right,
No multifamily.
So I think the protection, by not rezoning it and leaving it marine zone, gives us the spirit that we were looking for. And I believe this is just zoning isn't perfect. Mistakes, people say, oh, we should never change it. Well, I think that we don't know everything when we write a zoning law. And
To rezone it, I don't think
no, I'm
that
not
would...
talking about rezoning. I'm just saying allowing the discretion. I am in favor of allowing the discretion for the zoning, for the special permit granting authority to make that decision, to not tie their hands. I'm in favor of that.
Ralph?
Yeah, we're not going to rezone it, that's
Absolutely
obvious.
not rezoning it.
That's obvious, but if we're going to reintroduce this, you'd want to have to do some change in language. So when you say they may waive the floor area, you could say up to a certain percentage. And that would be a change that we could offer town meeting. And it would be our article, not Mr. Ahmet's article. And we would explain our position as to why we want to do that. So this language is quite good, but you're going to have to change something. Otherwise, town meeting members are saying, we turned it down once, why are you bringing it back to us? So you have to make a little change of some kind. So we can discuss what kind of a change we'd want to make, but that's one option would be to say, limit the percentage.
So it's actually turned down twice now, because the first time was the rezoning,
Right.
and now this time was the adjustment in the percentage. But it seemed more like a philosophical problem, because people were saying at town meeting, hey, if they don't like that, they shouldn't be in the Marine District, and maybe the landlord should find a Marine District use. It's difficult when you're not on the water,
Yeah.
but that's the sense I was getting from the discussion.
I think that's the key phrase at the end there, that do not border a water body. It isn't as if East Marine is going to suddenly change hands and they say, oh,
We're talking park cleaners.
right.
56 Grand Ave, and there's one, is there a third one?
There's a little office building over by Lewis.
But I think there was this fear that a big marina might decide to cut their business in half and put another non-marine related
And I
business in
think
there.
people didn't understand what was being read. I mean,
Right.
it says not on the water.
Not on the water.
This is not anything on the water. And I-
Because Park Cleaners is 100% non-marine at this point. So,
But it's pre-existing non-conforming,
Right.
that's where it relies.
and if it was to be sold, then would it have to become a marine use?
I don't think so. I believe pre-existing non-conforming, I sell them all the time, I've
So-
never really lost the use.
I
Okay.
think all he can be is a cleaner. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. You'd have to sell it as a cleaner.
The use, right, I
Yeah.
said the use.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, so that's never gonna happen, no,
Or-
for the most part.
Or I've had Mr. Gore approve a use, not on this thing, but, similar use and say it's the same thing. I mean, isn't that is his, if you don't need to change an occupancy, you just roll through, you just keep right on going.
The Marine District was made for a reason, and it protected a lot of things, but there are some people that have gotten hurt in that because they can't do marine, because they're not on the water, and so I understood why he made this, so I would think that maybe we could try to do something with the language.
Well, Ralph was suggesting maybe up it to 75%. Right now, it's 50% of the floor area. But the problem is, if it's not on the water, you might want to have 100% of whatever is not on the water, because you can't find anything for 25% of the building that you work in. 25% of that building would be not much left over.
It has a vacant, a yacht brokerage went out, and we haven't been able to find anybody. It's been sitting empty for years. because it's between two other marine uses, non-marine uses, and it just isn't working. I don't feel strongly on it. I just don't think that our language is perfect, and to sit back and redo it and look at it. I think the spirit, my understanding is the spirit of it is we didn't want non-marine, residential development on the site, and then encourage marine uses, but to give the discretion to the special permit granting authority, I'm okay with it if the landlord can make an argument for that. I mean, they have to have a hearing, listen to the public, under 240, 216, all kicks in when you go for a special permit. It can't change the character of the neighborhood. I believe there's plenty of protection in our zoning.
Give someone
give
the
the discretion.
opportunity to be heard.
Right, but not just shut them off.
Right,
That doesn't mean that the zoning board of appeals has to give it to them.
right.
But 240-216 is, a lot of neighborhood issues, views and vistas, character, a whole bunch of things in there that get to weigh in. And I believe that's why we have a special permit granted authority, whether it be our group or the ZBA. I'm confident that process works.
Okay, so you would like to pursue this through town meeting one more
Talk
time?
about it again. I'm not,
I personally think we should probably take a break for
Yeah.
a year,
I'm okay
because
with
they
that.
keep telling us no 3 times in a row. But
I just wanted to have the
You guys
discussion.
can-
I think we've had it.
So hold off on it, but revisit it in another year.
Unless,
Yeah.
and then maybe if an applicant brings it forward again, we could try to make sure the language was more understandable.
I think that it was a very good article, and if we had clearly enunciated that it's been sitting empty for 3 years, we're hurting business, and explained it a little more and got more behind it, maybe it would have gone through. But to come back again right away with it, I think is redundant and hurts our own standing with town meeting.
I do disagree with you on that, though, that I
Okay.
don't know that.
Well, here's what happened.
Ralph's waiting.
Ralph?
Yeah, when you say wait for a year, do you mean don't bring it up this fall, but bring
Correct.
it up next spring?
If
Is that what you're saying?
If it's still an issue for the occupant, maybe he'll find a marine use by then, and
Right, so delay it for, not for a springtime meeting year and go 2 years, but just delay it until next spring
One more thing.
town meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
and then we'll see if it's still a problem and it's still a hardship for the owner. We can go back and say, this is why we're back. We heard you, we give it a try. We're hoping the owner would do something in a marine use, but it's just not happening, if it doesn't happen.
And remember, the economy was bad for a large number of years, too,
It's true.
which doesn't help. We're talking about marine use, finding a tenant.
It is a physical quirk of this one particular building that I don't think we're going to fix with words unless we give some flexibility. And it doesn't really matter, it's a small little space, it's not a big deal. If the board doesn't feel about it, or the property owner has plenty of property, and we don't do it for that reason. My point is I just don't think our language is foolproof, and we should look for adjustments where necessary, and that's what
I agree with that.
that's the bigger point of the whole thing.
I agree with that, and I agree with the whole article and the whole idea, it's just town meeting didn't agree.
Right.
That's okay.
Shall we move on to committee reports?
Sure.
Okay, Ralph?
Yeah, well, under committee reports, I don't have anything for you as far as the appointing of the planning board for a representative for the CPC for tonight. But I do want to mention that applications for CPC recommendations to town meeting for this fall are due June 3rd. And I've asked to be able to give you a handout and make a brief presentation about the last 10 years of my representing the planning board on the Community Preservation Committee, because one of you will have to take my place July 1st. So sometime in June, I would like to be able to make that presentation.
Okay. Paul?
The wastewater advisory committee meeting, I have nothing further to report this time. Things are progressing, and hopefully next meeting I'll have more complete information.
Bob, you want to report for our,
Yeah, we had a very good meeting with Tom Kerr last week. He reviewed our element for transportation. He saw a lot of things in it that he liked. Got a little disconcerting news about the condition of the rails on the Cape, that they really don't lend themselves too well to a commuter rail, because trains wouldn't be able to go that fast. But looking at commuter line coming down to Buzzards Bay seemed very promising. The formation of another transportation committee that would be very task specific, and the first task that we would like to see them do is how do we link with Falmouth with that station in Buzzards Bay? How can we make that more efficient so we can get people using the train more as opposed to buses or their own vehicles? So there are a lot of interesting things that came out of that meeting, and I think we left feeling pretty good that we actually have an element that's going to have some meat to it.
I came up with a concern from Tom's points that if we don't have a group, if we're not watching that it's like, if we're not, it's almost like being shovel ready. If you don't have plans for some federal money coming down on transportation, you don't have people thinking about it and planning to it and looking for it, it goes someplace else. And we don't have anyone that's doing that right now. And one of the things that we've talked about, what the failure of our transportation committee was, is that the solutions require such big federal and state dollars, we can't do anything. It's almost like a catch-22 though, because if we don't have a committee that's looking for those dollars, we're not getting them. So it's like, I don't have a solution, but it was that was a concern I wasn't aware of, that other towns are getting funding for projects that we may not be, because we don't have people looking at it. That's what that was probably that and the takeaway of that they're focusing on interconnection. I mean, that's one of the things we've talked about. The interconnection was the really big thing.
and Tom is doing that.
Yep.
Doug?
Madam Chair, may I comment? On this transportation committee, are we talking about a town committee or a subcommittee of the planning board?
No, the town, it was never, the Transportation Commission was never dissolved, it was a town meeting vote.
So it would be a town meeting.
The selectmen can start it up anytime they want.
The selectmen can appoint committee members, but there were 7 on it. And we also discussed whether 7 is really an optimal number, or 3 like we have on our subcommittee, or 5. And it was thought that 5 would be a better number, easier to get than 7 for starters.
Given this discussion, is that going to move forward with the Board of Selectmen?
Becky Moffett was there. That's all I can tell you. We gave her the task, if you will, of taking it back to the Board of Selectmen, that this is something that will need to be done. Because transportation is linkages for whatever we might want to do, and in terms of planning for land use.
When we have the transportation report, we'll be having another meeting with them in the fall, I presume. So perhaps that committee should be established before that report is presented, or at least the options are presented.
Yeah, I don't know. It's up to the selectmen, as you know.
I think there's
do
linkage there.
So, Doug?
I don't have any report for the Coastal Pond Management Committee. We hadn't met in some time, and I suspect I may have missed a meeting recently, but I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I thought there was one that was tentatively being planned, but I don't think I ever got a final confirmation. I'm really not sure if it happened or not.
Okay.
Get the EDIC. We have
Yes.
big news on the EDIC. We have signed a lease with the state, and we now have the train station, and we're moving ahead on that right now. So we're in the design. We'll be working with the members of the community on developing the specifications for the design, and working on an operational plan for it, and a lot of work. It's something that Mike Glazo worked on for a long time, And he put it together, and finally, I never thought the lease would happen, but it did.
Paul.
Well, I'm talking the lease negotiations with the state.
okay.
Those were arduous, and we had to drive to Boston to do it. I mean, that was not, you couldn't take the phone, you got to go see him. Those negotiations are very difficult. On the lease negotiation side, I know the process is something was worked by committees for years, but the actual, I don't know, I put 10 or 12 hours, maybe even more, working with the state on it. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's moving forward, and we're supercharged on it right now.
The landfill
Excuse
thing?
me, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Would you like to address the cleanup last week?
Go ahead. Well, I wasn't there.
Oh, I was out of town.
I
So I didn't
I
participate
was
in the
working.
cleanup, but the Preservation Alliance organized a cleanup at the site and had about 30 people there, and people, Mr. Gavosa, for example, provided a dumpster, and they cut down a lot of areas. If you haven't been there, drive by, it looks much nicer that they've cleared off the area, make room for the bus parking.
Okay, now we move on to reorganization of the board, and I will take nominations for chairman for next year.
I'll nominate Jim.
Any others? Okay,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Assuming you want the
I
job,
do,
Jim.
I do.
Okay. Vice chair,
I'd nominate Pat.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank God. I need your help.
And
Thank you.
secretary clerk?
I
No
nominate Paul.
nominations.
Okay, Paul's been nominated.
Paul, do you want the job?
Second.
Too late, you got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've done it.
That was fast. Can I ask a question? Is there any news on this potential meeting with the Board of Selectmen in June?
Nothing yet. They're talking about it, they're looking for their retreat, and when they can get their facilitator. So we're all betwixt and between. It has not been dropped, but it's betwixt and between at this point in time still.
It'd be nice, if possible, to get some kind of schedule for potential meetings for the summer, because a lot of people are not going to be around. So if that's possible, it'd be kind of nice to plan that way.
You know, that would be the other thing, is everybody should please get into the office your known vacation plans when you're not going to be here.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Until further notice, I'm always here.
Yeah, same here.
I have
I never go anywhere.
Who would take a vacation from Cape Cod?
Yeah,
I would.
Going to Vermont.
Not me.
As I just got back from Virginia.
oh, and you know,
Is there anything else?
We,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
No correspondence, right? No correspondence.